Another Meta Monday. Oh, it's a data is fun day. Mono Green's gonna run day. It's just another Meta Monday. All right, people complained that we didn't have a song the last couple of times, so there you go. There you go. Let's talk about some standard. We'll take a quick peek at historic at the end, but we had a lot of matches of Magic played over the weekend. So people that don't keep up on it, MTG Melee had tournaments over the weekend that were standard for SCG. So there were 8 qualifiers plus their 5K. You can see here our sample size for this matrix is 2,500 matches, a little bit thereabouts. And we might have a 3-deck standard format, shit. You look at all these different decks, and you look at the red versus the green, and yeah. We've got 3 decks in the green, and we've got a lot of decks in the red. So mono green aggro, not only the most played deck, but also the highest win rate deck. So over a quarter of the field, 280 decks that were played this weekend throughout the various events were mono green, and mono green is great against the second place deck. So Is It Turns the second most played. Mono green stomps both Is It Dragons and Is It Turns. It's also very good against Werewolves, which was the 5th most played deck, and it's a little bit weak against mono white. LOL, this Demure control. I don't know that I've ever seen a non-other have that close to 90% before. Like that's kind of absurd, right? Let's shrink me down here a little bit so you can see that it's win rate versus the other. But yeah. So one thing to note here. A lot of these numbers are small-ish, although some are smaller than others. Yeah, there's a lot of takeaways you can have from this information, and I've seen a lot of takes and opinions flying around, but in my opinion, looking at this, I've seen a number of people say that they think mono green at the core is the problem with the format, and that could be the case, but there could also be more nuance to it than that, right? And I would like for you to just like kind of pretend that this doesn't exist here for a second, right? Like let's pretend that mono green aggro isn't a deck in the format. And then let's look at Is It Turns. And Is It Turns is the second deck, and it has a bad win rate against mono green, and it has a bad win rate against mono white, and it has a bad win rate against Gruul. But other than these, it's really good everywhere else, right? Like there's this 43% and 44%. These are its closest to 50% in terms of win rates, right? Like it's almost 60% or 60+% everywhere else. And this is this style of gameplay where we see it's not great against aggro, but it bullies literally everything else in the format, is exactly what we saw before rotation with the Sultai Ultimatum deck. With Is It Turns, you have 2 options for playing against it profitably. You can interact with it on exactly the stack. You have to have counter spells because discard spells don't work against foretell cards. And even then, counter spells aren't that amazing against the Is It Turns deck, because the Is It Turns deck, if you haven't been following, plays a card that copies its extra turn spell. So you even need 2 counters the turn they're doing their thing. Or if you're not playing a bunch of counter spells, you can race them, which is exactly what we see the format doing here, right? So like we see green aggro, we see white aggro, and honestly, this matchup against Is It Turns, I would assume, is the reason we see people playing Gruul Werewolves, despite it having bad matchups into the other aggro decks. It's just so good into Is It Turns that those are your choices. You're forced to play a very narrow, specific subset of interaction, which might not even be good enough the way Is It Turns is constructed, or you could race it, which is why we see the aggro decks being successful. Honestly, I think parallels to current historic are pretty reasonable. Like it's a combo control deck that you need to get linear against or have counter spells plus pressure and hope that that's good enough. Past just looking at this, we can take a look at the metagame overview from untapped.gg, and we can see these metrics are very reflective of what we see from the tournament. Boros aggro wasn't really represented in the tournament, but it's a little bit popular here on the ladder. It's not even that popular. It's 4.5%. One thing that's really telling in these metrics, and this is, I love these charts on Untapped. Okay, so here's Innistrad, the Midnight Hunt releasing here. And you can see the win rate of mono green stuff. I want you to follow the lime green line as we go. The win rate actually goes down on mono green, but watch the top chart. So this bottom chart is win rate over time, but the top chart, look what's happening up top. What's happening is the win rate's going down. The win rate's going down because the popularity is going way up. So here on the last day where we're at this 64% win rate almost, which is down from when it was originally debuted the week of almost 70%, is we went from, 7% of the format where people, this is the people are trying new stuff phase, right? This is September 16th to the about, honestly, look at this. It's almost exactly a week, right? The 23rd's a week. So this is the week of release. So this is not many people are playing mono green because there's a bunch of, it's not even about skilled players and more people playing it. It's this first week, people are trying new sweet things. So the established good beatdown deck is winning more. And it's being played less because people are incentivized to try new things, right? Because Magic's sweet when you can brew. And then, we get about a week in. And this is like the fuck it, all my brews suck point. Let's just play the good deck. And at this point, remember, Untapped doesn't remove mirror matches as well. So that's an important asterisk for this information is this is a 64% win rate when how much of the field? 20% of the field is playing it, and mirror matches aren't taken out, which people that aren't good at statistics, if you don't remove mirror matches, it pulls the win rate towards 50%. So if you're above 50, not removing mirror matches pulls the win rate down. If you're below 50, it pushes it up. So Dimir control here is getting a boost from not removing mirror matches. Mono green, however, is getting dragged back down towards 50. So this trend here is actually really awesome to get to look at. You're like, all right, new decks are sweet, new decks are sweet, new decks are sweet. Nah, fuck it, my new decks suck. Let's play mono green. Let's play mono green. Mono green's great. Let's play mono green. So yeah, and there's other stats in here as well. These are the win rates down here. Is anybody coming up? Gruul, wow. And actually, you want to talk about neat trends. So here's the break line here to help you follow on October 1st. Look how successful Gruul Werewolves is. Now, look where Mono Green gets really popular and Gruul Werewolves win rate just like pitches off a cliff because mono green picks up in popularity. Like, it's actually really incredible getting to see it. Again, going back to we can look at win rate matrices from the tournament, 30% against mono green in about a 50 match sample size here. Like, yeah. Okay, now speculations on the why. One thing I would like to mention is whenever we talk about green in this format, Renin 7 and Chariot always get brought up. And in my opinion, Renin 7 and Chariot are cards that are being scapegoated in large part because they're new and they're flashy. In my opinion, the corner keystone card, whatever you want to call it, in mono green, is actually Blizzard Brawl. The fact that your removal in the green aggro deck gets worse when you splash a second color because you lose snow mana is so incredibly messed up in terms of color pie. Blizzard Brawl is the reason this mono green deck, is so good against things like Gruul Werewolves. Gruul Werewolves just does not get to play nearly as efficient removal. It doesn't. Yeah, you get to kill a creature and then brawl with no worries. Yeah, exactly. Like you get to murder something and then you get a free attack with your giant tramplers. Yep. Also, I think, and like, there's always the case of, okay, Jeff, this is the third week of the format. People should be able to take time and adjust here. And while that's true to a degree, I would be surprised if the metagame can actually adjust to mono green in its current state, because it wasn't like mono green was a surprise, right? Like, mono green was a deck in standard 22. We knew about it going into this tournament this weekend. It's not like the other 75% of the field built their decks going, I don't know mono green exists. Like, we've been playing 4 Burning Hands in our red deck sideboards in standard since rotation happened, right? In fact, I think there was a time release week we were talking about, like, yeah, we'd play 6 or 7 Burning Hands if we could. Yeah, and what Danny said there is exactly correct. To throw back to our tournament, the Hoaglandia Open, we watched mono green aggro lose to these bigger green decks quite handily. And just, again, talking about metagame considerations, the bigger green decks, they just aren't competitive against Izzet turns because of the axis that Izzet turns attacks on. This deck prevents the format from having other decks that can keep up with mono green, in my opinion. And when I say my opinion, that's to imply that all opinions are subjective, including my own. So if you disagree with it, that's fine, chat. It's okay. But just, be aware when you say you disagree with it that I play a lot of fucking Magic, and I have for a long time. All right, let's take a look at Historic. Whew! Look at that, chat. Jeskai control popularity over time. Look at how unpopular Jeskai control is. It's down to 13%, chat. Mono white humans doing the Lord's work here. Pushing in on being the highest rate. Man, that's really absurd, huh? 66%. I'm honestly, I've been like ignoring Historic largely. I plan to take a couple of days off, so we're playing against a lot of control, but man, it's honestly kind of impressive. It's a shame we don't have win rate matrices for Untapped, and we haven't had tournaments on Melee for me to be able to look at. See, yeah, look, all I'm gonna say is, chat, is Jeskai control's win percent here is all the way down to like 52%, and clearly they need to unban Brainstorm so we can get a pick-me-up here. Jeskai control is struggling, fam. It needs a pick-me-up. I don't know. So, just to give you some space where my headspace is at. Even with Standard doing what Standard is doing at the moment, I kind of enjoy the play patterns of Standard more than the play patterns of Historic. Like, and this is super subjective, but like this top 20% here, Jund Food and Jeskai Control, I just really don't enjoy playing matches of Magic against either of these decks on average most of the time. So the average play patterns here in Historic have just been rough for me personally. We played Historic on Friday, and it was medium on the ladder. So we're gonna take a little bit of a break from that amount of Historic submissions. So take a peekaboo here and chart over these for people that care. But regardless of whether or not you want to argue this format's healthy or not, I don't know that I have a strong opinion on whether it's healthy or not. I just know that the top play patterns of these two for me, probably 1 in 5 or more of my matches, they just aren't fun for me. So I'm gonna chill in this format. But enjoying the stream, the untapped comparison chart we ran a minute ago. As a note at the bottom, the stats do not include mirror matches, does it? Oh, you're talking about this? This is not untapped. This is a win rate matrix from MTG Melee. It's kind of hidden here under my chat overlay. So this is not untapped. So for Standard, we looked at 2 different data sources. So this chart is large-ish tournaments that were held on MTG Melee over the weekend that were Standard, and then this is untapped, which is the deck tracker application. So those are 2 different data sources. They're very comparable though. So the metrics here and the metrics here, they're really not that far off. It's actually really interesting to see how predictive of the tournament format the actual ladder was, including Demir Control sucking a fat one. Am I subbed to Untap? Yes, this is, so for people that haven't used Untap before, I think everything that's not best of 1 Standard is gated behind their premium features. Premium's highlighted here, so if you want access to this data at all times for yourself, you can check out their premium features. They do good stuff and have good software.